Okay. Ready to go. Are you ready to go, my dear?
I'm ready. Ready when you are.
Okay. Hi. Hey, I'm Jennifer Dabowski, and I'm very professional, and I'm here with Naava Carman.
Who's also attempting to be professional.
That's right. And we're both acupuncturists, and I'm going to be talking to Naava about some super interesting topics. So stay tuned. Naava is an acupuncturist with 20 years experience in London. She focuses on fertility and obstetrics, and she has a diploma course in fertility. She talks, I'd say you've been doing some speaking the last couple of years, correct?
Yeah, that's right.
Teaching. And I also have been reading some very interesting blog posts by you. So we are hoping to address some of these topics. Naava, let us begin with whatever you would like.
So you and I have been talking about some interesting stuff, right? And about how difficult it is to get traction to talk about feminism and Chinese medicine.
I agree.
And we've been connecting. We have Acupuncture Hour on Twitter, right? So every Monday, and you and I kind of connect and we talk about women in business, some level, self-care. We talk a lot about that sort of stuff.
By the way, everyone, hashtag Acupuncture Hour on Mondays. You should join in.
Yeah. Get a promo in, right? There's never enough of us on there. We've got to get more
there
of us.
There really isn't.
It's crazy. We have such interesting topics too.
We do. And I love how you really at least come off, because this is our first time talking sort of in person.
Face to face, yeah.
Right? Face to face. You know, as really intelligent, good at what you do, confident, appreciate that you share your opinion, and I think you share it with respect for other human beings. And I think that's very important. So I'd like to hear a few of those opinions about Chinese medicine and women in the field.
Okay. Well, I had a really interesting year last year. I found myself in a position of having to step in and take care of my family financially in a way that I'd never had to before. And I had to figure out a way to do it to make a good living in a way that was congruent with what I felt was morally and ethically right. And that was a really interesting challenge. And I took some time out before I sort of embarked on that year and thought about who I was and did some what I call the internal work, right? Thought about who I was and tried to quantify what I did and how I talked to my clients and what made me be successful in my practice, what made me a good human being to be around, and then how I could turn that into something that not only made me money, because I need to make a living, but also did something for the wider good. And as we've been chatting about, the rules in the UK are very different to in other parts of the world. So we're not regulated in any way.
Yes. You know what? Let me make that clear, because I know there'll be people listening in America, because I didn't know until I talked to you that there were actually no regulations in the UK for acupuncture. So there are no regulations for acupuncture in the UK, people in the US.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So I'm part of the British Acupuncture Council, which is a voluntary body, but I could literally go and do a weekend course, call myself an acupuncturist, get some insurance, and then say I was a fertility specialist and go ahead and treat.
Right, which blows my mind.
Yeah. So what I wanted to do was turn my teaching into something that would be both a consumer protection device and also a way of people who are really competent in our field registering their time and their care and their effort in an area of speciality. And that's what came from that. That was the diploma that came from that. So you have to be in practice for at least 5 years to be working with me. And it's designed for people who are already good and with experience, really just push them to the next level. And if you've done one of my courses, you get a little seal that says you've been fertility support company trained. And that means that a lot of the promotional work I do is to the public and talking to the public about what does it mean to see a specialist? What does it mean to really be held by someone who understands that? And in the course of developing that and now developing the online platform, which I'm going to record my work and other people's work on, in the course of basically doing business as a woman, I came across some quite unbelievable amounts of sexism in our field. And after a year of
just realize it though in this last year.
I think I'd always known it. I'd experienced it as a student, and I'd experienced it throughout my life.
Okay.
But I think it was as a result of doing some work around white privilege, which a colleague of mine, I speak about this in the blog, but a colleague of mine did me the honor of hitting me over the head with.
I did read that, yeah.
Yeah. And I had to go and do a lot of work on myself and a lot of work on my pretty poor attitudes, including just my ignorance on subjects. And learning a vocabulary around that sort of opened my eyes to what I was experiencing as a woman too. And I finally had some words for the level of discomfort I'd felt for almost my whole adult woman life. I had some words to explain it for the first time.
And I think it's true. A lot of times you could just say, it just didn't feel right. It just felt uncomfortable. But so what words did you learn?
So I learned that discomfort, that feeling of discomfort was enough. That I didn't need somebody else to tell me if it was okay or not.
Okay.
That I didn't need to be validated or be patted on the back or told anything that would make it okay for me to feel the way I felt. And I learned a lot about saying no and drawing boundaries.
All right.
And I learned to deal with what came back when I did that, which has been really interesting.
That, I think, it's already hard to do boundaries, but I think it's true. It's harder for women to have boundaries. I think that's true. And I agree with you. Sometimes you have to deal with blowback, and that is tough. So how have you learned to deal with that?
Well, it hasn't been easy. I wrote this blog about it. And in fact, I was a fairly regular blogger, but I haven't been able to write another one since. This blog was written
I looked before our talk, right. And I saw that was in September 2017, right?
Yeah, I'm still dealing with the fallout of that blog. I haven't been able to blog since.
So, okay, we're talking almost a year.
Yeah, I'm still getting hate mail from that blog.
You're still, okay. First off, folks, I will include a link in the video. So a link to the blog, so you will know what we're talking about. But could you give us maybe like a very, very short summary of your point in the blog?
Yeah. So the blog was called TCM, Misogyny and Female Power.
Okay.
And in it, I started by writing down some of the things that had been said to me during the year that really got up my nose.
Okay.
And some of the things I'd learned in terms of how I responded to that and how the anger I felt, and anger isn't always an acceptable emotion for a woman to feel or demonstrate because it becomes all we are. But that anger has been such a useful catalyst to really spur me on to do things I might not have otherwise done. So it
can be motivating.
Very motivating, and talking about having to climb down from the idea of being superwoman, working on the self-care aspect too, and really just talking about my experience of not being offered as much money as men to do work, being patronized in the course of doing business, being patted on the head, having people offer me like all the time unsolicited advice, all sorts of things like that. And this blog seems to have got really, I've had almost 60 messages from women all around the world. It went viral. But I also regularly wake up to hate mail from white, middle-aged men in the UK and in America who just rant at me.
Every day still?
Not every day. Thank God it's calmed down. But it was initially, it was every day. And some very high-profile, prominent men in our profession who commented on that blog and who didn't like my response take great umbrage at that. And I've had some quite unbelievable messaging from very prominent people in our field too.
Wow.
Some of it was completely unsolicited.
Right.
Like I had no interaction. I didn't know who they were.
What bothers me the most about that experience for you is I read this blog and I thought it was very thoughtful. I did not think it was an aggressive blog. And I really felt you were expressing your point of view on this subject and discussing your experience, which a lot of women can relate to that experience, I think, or at least to some of it. Yeah. What surprised me was some of the nastiness. Like, I feel like, okay, look, someone can disagree with you all they want,
Mm.
but respectfully.
And you saw some of that in your own group, right?
I did. I definitely did. And the thing is, I actually saw some people who disagreed with you respectfully.
Yeah, and it was awesome.
It
And we
was.
agreed to disagree. And I love that.
Right. I was impressed. I was like, great, let's have a dialogue. That was, I thought, exactly what you're looking for.
Yeah.
You disagree, but why call names? Like, why say nasty things to people? And
Yeah.
that's the point where I don't feel it's okay. I just don't feel it's okay for people to talk to other human beings that way.
Mm.
And what I also think it's interesting, though, what is it that triggered people so much to respond? Because think about how many things people read in a day on Facebook or wherever that goes right out of their head. So if people are taking the time to send emails and write diatribes,
right, which is
right, you clearly hit a nerve.
Yeah.
What do you?
And as you say, that blog. Well, that blog wasn't, as you say, it wasn't about them. And we've talked about this. I just thought I was writing a blog that was kind of getting off my chest some of the stuff I've been experiencing this year.
Yeah.
But there was something about, I think there is something about a boundary and a change of power and paradigm that can be really threatening. And I think it's really interesting that all of this negativity that's come my way has been from a very specific demographic of man.
That is so. Let me ask you this. Have you gotten any hate mail from anyone who wasn't a white middle-aged man?
Not one.
Wow. Oh my God. All right.
Let's just. In fact, the opposite. I've had a lot of people who have been, and I've had some very interesting dialogues and met some really interesting people who have been transgender, who have been Native American, who have been Black, who have been like men of all different cultures who respond completely differently to that blog.
Wow. Now, but I just have to say, that is amazing that the only demographic that has been so hateful is white middle-aged men.
Yeah.
I mean, so clearly you know which group you trigger the most. There's like no doubt. And wow. And the thing is too, there's so many women who come across, so like you don't come across as an aggressive person. So that's clearly some men need to look at themselves.
I'm kind of grateful for it after this year though, because it's been such an amazingly powerful tool to help me narrow where I'm aiming my energy.
Yes.
Fellow practitioners, people who've been in my position wanting to make a good living in an ethical way and not necessarily having the tools. People I want to share my clinical knowledge with, consumers, I want the sort of type of consumer I want to work with and what they may experience. It's been an amazing gift to have had that.
Well, and you must feel very strong coming through it because I know there's been times in my life when I've faced things that were unfair and very stressful. And when it goes on for a period of time, it can wear you down. But on the other hand, you do find within yourself, I can take it, I can take it and I'm still going to do what I think is right and what feels right to me in my gut.
Do you ever read Brene Brown's book, Daring Greatly?
I have heard many of her talks. I have not read her books, but what were you thinking?
So I read her book, and one of the things she talks about is shame.
Yes.
Right? She's a shame and vulnerability researcher, and she talks about the experience of shame. And what I experienced with this pushback was a feeling that I was trying to be shamed. And what she talks about is the fact that you can experience being talked to in that way as a physical pain. The body experiences emotional pain as physical pain. And she talks about techniques of how to deal with that. So to actually say the word pain out loud, to really get your brain to understand that emotion you're experiencing is profoundly real. Yes. And she talks about checking in with people who have earned your time and your trust and your care, to give you that perspective, really to understand that you can slide out from somebody else's imposition of their opinion on you into a place that feels right. And I think I've been able to turn to trusted colleagues and to friends and to my family and to touch base with them to kind of recenter myself every time I feel pushed off And I do. Every time I get it, I have a moment where I'm reeling and I have to kind of pull myself together. And it's been a wonderful experience to be able to kind of learn how to wobble but not fall over.
Yes. No, I agree. And you're lucky, though, to have that kind of support system. And I think having a support system like that also makes it easier to say what you need to say because you know you have people behind you. So
Yes.
I think that's pretty great. And after having had this experience, which I'm sure was painful, and that's the other thing too, why purposely try to hurt people? Like that's the other thing. What is the point of that? That's not going to get you to change your mind.
No.
It does nothing but be mean. Moving on. After having experienced that and still having experienced it, and who knows, maybe someone may have something to say after this blog, not blog. Was there anything new, really, like that you're like, wow, I hadn't thought of it that way?
In terms of what people said to me?
Well, just in terms of the whole experience, like going from writing a blog that you didn't think was going to be such a big deal, to now a year later still having not written a blog. Let's change that. When are you going to write another blog?
I have to say I'm not sure.
Okay.
What I want to do is write a follow-up to that blog. Because one of the things that blog did do is bring me into contact with some amazing women, yourself included. Because that's how we first got talking over that blog.
Yes, we did.
And I've met some truly astonishing people all over the world who've taken the time to reach out. And I've joined a mastermind group with some of these amazing women.
That's wonderful.
Yeah. And I have been invited to speak, and all these opportunities have opened up. So, it's given me a lot of food for thought in terms of giving back. So I would like the next blog to be about all the bonuses that not the negativity. I will mention it, but I don't want to delve into it. But all of the bonus things that I've got from having written that, I'd like to do a follow-up that kind of is positive. But what I want to do is kind of get to the end of this cycle of talking about the downside. And then with the launch of the platform, I'd like to flip that around and have the impetus to sit and to write about some of these amazing women who are doing amazing things that I don't think we talk about enough.
I agree. And you know what? I think that's a great idea. So why don't we just flip it right now? And why don't you tell me what are the bonuses you got?
So looking around, I've met women who have started colleges, who are developing conferences, who are writing and talking and reaching out to women who, for example, I do most of my area of interest is immunology. And I was able to reach out to a woman who's doing immunology in children and talk to her about how this process, from a TCM point of view, how the process started. How did the immunology problems start as a child that I'm seeing now? So all of these amazing things are coming up as a result that I've kind of learned from and been able to incorporate in my practice, and seeing everybody all around doing these amazing things is hugely inspirational. Now, you and I talked about surrounding yourself with successful people and what it does for you. I think that makes a huge difference. If I surround myself with people who are energetic and positive and motivated and who understand the value of self-care and investing in yourself from a knowledge point of view, it just elevates your practice, and you kind of get to give back out to your clients as a result.
Yes.